Good evening and welcome back to another edition of The Lounge, Time Management with Dr. Venga, right here on 812 Live, Banama Radio 24. If you're tuning in for the first time, Dr. Venga is a seasoned veteran in the area of time management. He is an accomplished consultant, author, and businessman. Welcome back, Dr. Venga. It's good to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Well, today, if you're tuning in for the first time, like I said before, what we're talking about today is something to do with time management, but it's a common problem amongst a lot of us around the world, and it is that we tend to blame others when certain problems arise or happen to us. But little do we know that at certain times, and I'm not saying all the time, is that we don't know that we are the ones that is responsible for our own problems. Some of us don't know this, but most of us are responsible for our own problems, and some of us tend to forget about it. And before that, for those of you who want to ask Dr. Venga any questions regarding time management, you can email 812@radio24.com.my. That's 812@radio24.com.my, or drop a comment on our Facebook page, Banama Radio 24, or give us a call at 03-269-27939. Dr. Venga will be more than happy to help you solve your time management issues. Well, Doctor, we talked about doing things unconsciously, but today's topic, we're talking about people deliberately putting the blame on someone for their own shortcomings, or are actually trying to avoid the fact that it is themselves that is causing the problem all the time. They make it happen. How important is this for us to identify?
Well, first of all, it is important to recognize one very important fact, and that is nothing happens on its own.
Mm-hmm.
You need two things to happen,
right,
so that an action will take place. When you said deliberately people do this in order that they can blame others, I don't think they do it deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
The main reason is our human behavior.
Right.
We, unfortunately, from the time we have developed to this stage, we know one thing. The best means of defense is attack.
The best means of defense is attack. Mm-hmm.
See, so what we try to do is that we blame somebody else because that's the only thing we know. Because when we do something and somebody say, "Hey, this is not the way to do it," immediately our defense mechanism come in.
Right.
Fear that you might think bad of me, that I'm not capable, and therefore the first thing I do is to blame somebody else.
Right.
And that is a natural born thing with all human.
Right.
And believe it or not, very few developed people actually will say, "Well, yeah, I'm to be blamed. Yeah, I'm part of the problem." Or they might say, "I am the problem."
Right.
And we will never do that. We will always try to find a way to tell someone else that, "Hey, it's not me to be blamed. No, it's other things." No? So people don't realize that they are part of that problem.
Right.
We don't recognize that. We always blame somebody else or something. And that's because basically we are animal. In a lot of ways we are animal. And animal, what does it do? You go into his territory. The first thing the animal thing is that you are going to kill him.
Right.
And therefore the first thing he does is attack.
The law of encroachment.
Exactly. And therefore they attack. And that is one of our behavior, animal behavior. Inside us, we have not developed much. Now, do people recognize this? The answer is no.
Right.
People don't.
But having said what you've said, you said some of us do it from the time we're born. Is it because of upbringing sometimes that makes us become like this, or is it in every human?
It is in every human, but upbringing will probably mellow it, but it may not happen.
Right.
It may also happen. Depends on your behavior at home. Let's say you're a child growing up, and then you find the mother and the father and the sister and the brothers blaming one another. And then what happens? Automatically, this behavior begins to encroach into you, and you become part of the defense mechanism.
Right.
And that is also, you're right, we are born with it, but we can always shape it and become better.
Right.
But unfortunately, our environment forces us to do that. Give you some examples, Donna. Children playing in a garden, in a field or something like that. What happens? When somebody loses something, immediately they find, hey, who took it?
Right.
Blame somebody else. And that kind of thing we observe in children, in adults, every day in our life. Give you some example, okay?
Right.
Every time you drive a car, okay, there is an accident. Do you find somebody getting down the car and say, I am to be blamed? Do you ever get that?
You never get that. But having said that, to my defense, I've done that before.
Yeah, okay.
I get out of the car and I say, it's my fault. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay, good. I mean, the moment you say that, automatically what happens?
Right.
The other person cools down. Everything is resolved, right?
Right.
I'm fault. Let me see how we can sort it out, okay? It has always been, my wife is very good for this, okay?
Right.
One day she was driving out of the car, house for the car. She didn't observe that my neighbor had parked the car. A friend had come to her place and parked the car. The moment she drove the car out, and you know, my car it's a German car.
Right.
It knocked into this small car, and the car was a total wreck.
Right.
So she got out of the car and she went pale, you know. Luckily I was upstairs. I came down running. I told the guy, hey, don't worry.
Right.
We'll get it done. We'll take it fixed, okay? So she was stunned for about 10 minutes. She wouldn't even talk, you know.
Right.
But you see, because I was able to go, hey, look, we'll pay for. But you see, people don't do that.
Right.
They begin to argue with you, maybe use abusive words and all that. That makes the thing. And this is part of a human problem. You
Right.
said just now, okay? We are all born with it. But we can learn how to change that behavior.
Right.
Well, we don't. We go into an office environment. Let's say you go to work in an office environment. A report needs to be submitted. Due time, due date. You can't do it. What do? You see, you look for scapegoats, you know.
Right.
Who can I blame? Then you blame, especially you blame people who are not around.
Right.
And therefore you hope to get out of it. This is a normal human behavior. Can we get out of it? The answer is yes.
Right.
But it takes a lot. A lot of your own understanding of your own self. That's why self-improvement and self-development is the basis for any human
Right.
to become better.
So we're talking about people who take unconsciously, put the blame on other people. What about people who are not consciously know that it's happening to them and not doing anything about it because they don't want to hurt their surroundings?
Yes.
So you become a victim then.
Yes, you can. You can. See, especially if you are a person who's an introvert,
Right.
who do not want to, for instance, address that issue. You stay out. Okay, you blame me. I'll accept it.
Right.
But then what happens is that you accumulate this over time, and one day
It explodes.
for you.
Or it implodes.
Yes. So these people actually need psychological help.
Right.
They need it. They need to talk to someone who can help them, guide them
Right.
through this. Because lots of things happen not because of you. It happens because of two things. Two parties have to be blamed for that, okay?
Right.
Always. The party that is silent is sometimes the one that gets the full blame.
Right.
These people are very silent. They need help. And this help, if not given at the proper time, eventually will lead them to other psychological thing. And people become bad sometimes.
Right. It's interesting that you said you need to identify the
Yes.
problem.
Yes.
I was speaking to a psychiatrist or who's a psychologist too a couple of days ago, and he says most of the time with children, the reason they're frustrated and all, sometimes they're frustrated and they don't know they are. And if you can identify it for them and
Yes.
tell them, you know what, you're frustrated, they start to simmer
Yes,
down.
yes,
Right?
yes.
And that's the same with adults too.
Yes.
So if they go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, and they identify, say, you have a problem, you tend to blame other people, then they start to look inside and say, look, I need to make a change to myself. Of course, it happens to some, it doesn't happen to some. But for some of us who want to make that change, where do we start?
Okay, to those of us who want to make the change, the first thing we must recognize is that how much of what he or she says is part of you to be blamed. Accept that first.
Right.
Yes, this is my fault. I agree. Once you say it's my fault, I agree. Invariably, the other party will say, well, I also am to be blamed.
Right.
So then we meet a consensus area. The first party, I must be the first one to take the step, say, sorry, I am to be blamed.
Right.
Sorry, it's me. I'm there. And then the next step is, hey, can we move forward? Can we go forward? And then the conversation can become better.
Right.
The problem is how many of us will do that? Because the animal instinct is in front of you and saying, don't do that, because you are afraid that you might think bad of me,
Right.
or I'm not capable, or that I'm incompetent, and therefore immediately attack.
Right.
So yes, I believe it can be done. I give you a very good example. As I speak to you right now, I was in the office from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock today, preparing a table plan. When I say a table plan, seating plan, no? Complete plan. No? Me and my personal assistant, Celine, no? Together we were doing it. I finished at 1 something and went home to have a shower and come here. And then I got a call from her. And she was really, said, Venga, and I can't take this, There's one more person who said he wants to come. We closed it about a week ago, and she was all that, And the person wanted, the person is an old man, 86 years old man. So I calmed her down. I said, okay, Celine, it's not your it's not your fault. I know the frustration you are in. I said, this is an old man, 86 years old. Okay, let's find a way to resolve that. And when I told her, let's find a way to resolve that, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. And in about 2-3 minutes, she was back to normal again. So my belief is that even in situations like that, automatically she, of course, blamed the person. Then I checked. Was this man who was supposed to come, is he to be blamed? The answer is no. Actually, he told someone who's going to be in charge on the day. Told him already. I called him and said, did he tell you? Yeah, he did. Oh, I thought since he was at that level, definitely he would have told so and so. Okay. I said, never mind.
It's a lot of assumption.
You see, assumption. You see, sometimes we make assumptions, and that assumption makes us do what we do. And to me, this is the second part of it. You see, sometimes we perceive wrongly. We perceive that people do this or do that. We never examine our own perception. I give you a couple of examples of this perception thing. When I first came to this place, Radio 24, I met you. Then I met the other young lady,
Najiha.
Right? Okay, in this 4 or 5 meeting, my perception has changed considerably about you, about her, and about the whole setup and all like that, But we need to, in order for me to do that, I need to pull out my data and look at, hey, what do I know? What is something new? Constantly see the change. And by that way, we always, will become better. That's
so you need to constantly have something to reference to. You need to constantly look at things and weigh them, balance out things, and that will get the balance into your life.
Otherwise, we live with the same old data or the same old information, and we behave in that information. Like example, we were talking about this blame. Most of the time, it's like, I may have an old data about you. And I meet you 2 weeks later. And if I have not looked at the old data 2 weeks ago, my perception of you is 2 weeks old. But today you are different. I must recognize that very quickly and take my old data and then clear all those things not there and put in the new data. And then I can behave with you much better. I can talk to you much better. I can interact with you much better. That's what we don't do. We live with that old data. And then we never change.
Well, we started off getting the topic wrong by saying that people deliberately put the blame on others. So we've now come to an understanding that people don't deliberately do it. It happens. Well,
yes, it happens.
We're going to move to another area now. Take, for example, work. We tend to blame the boss for favoritism when they pick someone else for promotion, even just to go out for lunch. We don't realize that we might be the problem. Is that right?
Well, first of all, I think this is
there's always two sides to this.
Okay, office politics. Okay, that's why managers must be very competent. Whatever action they do will be viewed by people at different angle. They will look upon this 360 degrees. So a manager must be very careful what he does, what he say, how to say it, when to say it, and so on and so forth. Today's managers, majority of them are not well trained or well developed. They themselves have been through the rough road to become a manager because they were very competent in the task they did or the work they did. But they have not been trained how to manage people.
They don't have managerial skills.
They don't have that.
Or people skills. So
exactly. They don't have that. So what happens is, you see somebody, at that point in time, you recognize the person for what she or he has done and immediately want to reward and say, let's go out to lunch. But there were others who have done a lot of work, much more than this particular person. How will they perceive me? They'll say, why? Wow, I've been here for 2 years. I've done this kind of work for you. I've been that, this. You know, I've done so much. And suddenly this girl or this boy turns up and he does this and there, voila, you're doing it. Huh? You are showing favoritism.
Right.
That's what happens all the time. Who is to be blamed? Not the person who has actually done the job, but the manager himself. That's why it is important that I as a manager must recognize I shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
What should I be doing then? To recognize people when they are and immediately give them that assurance they've done a good job on the spot, you know.
Right.
And if people have not done well, it is for you to tell them, hey, you have not done it also well. These are the areas in which you need to improve.
Right.
And that's something. Socializing is a very important part.
But what about managers putting the blame on others?
Oh yes, all the time it happens.
And this is something that happens all the time.
Everywhere.
So how do you find a balance in that?
Okay.
What do you just keep quiet and drop your guns?
Well, the way I would do it, the way we did it in our during my working life with people is like, okay, we have a Friday session. We call it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Friday session, in which we come out and talk without bar. I mean, what are the things we find can be improved? And some of us will openly say, this behavior of the manager, this or few things that need to change.
Right.
We bring it out in open and we discuss it without losing our temper, without being emotional, factually discuss it. And then we will see a change.
Right.
Definitely change. Because sometimes managers also behave because they think what they are doing is right. No one has told them otherwise.
Right.
Employees dare not tell because you can get into trouble.
Right.
You know that, okay? But in a society like the company that I work with, it's different. Everyone has the right. And because we came in that kind of background, we could not complain, make suggestion how to improve.
Right.
Like for instance, give you one example. My boss, the one I reported to, constantly, last minute thing. Do I blame him for it? At first I did. I say, you know. But then there came, I say, hey, something must be done about this. Because if he continues like that, I won't progress. And he's not going to help. So I sat down with him. I say, I have some suggestion to make.
Right.
You seem to put demands on me on certain things, okay? And at the very last minute. Although these data are already available, can we find a way to work together to make this happen?
Right.
Immediately the boss then said, find a way. Tell me how.
But hold your thoughts. We're going to take a short break for the top 5 news, and we're going to find out about that boss when we come back right here on 812 Live Panama Radio 24. We're currently speaking to Dr. Venga, and we're delving in to, as per usual, time management like we always do on a lovely Sunday evening like this. Jared Rodnam with you. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us right here on 812 Live. This is Dr. Venga's Time Management Lounge on 812 Live Panama Radio 24. Welcome back to Dr. Venga's Time Management Lounge, right here on 812 Live, Panama Radio 24. Today we're talking about putting the blame on others, and do you see yourself doing that? If you're seeing yourself doing that, and you're currently listening into this broadcast, you're at the right place. Well, Dr. Venga, you're talking about a boss and how you came to an amicable solution or cut a deal with him. Now, how was that done?
Well, you don't cut a deal. The thing is, he was also a very matured young man, older than me, of course.
Well, that's hard to find these days, maturity.
Exactly. But, he was such a guy who's willing to listen to everybody. Right. Otherwise, you can never be the boss of a company. It's the thing is, first of all, when I told him, listen, you are putting these demands on me. It's okay. I'm supposed to produce it. It's all right. But we have to find a better way to work together so that I can be productive. You see? I can be productive and I can assist and help you. He said, so what is the problem? And the problem is, I listed out to him. But I have meanwhile sat down and collated information, put the data together, say, hey, what is it he's giving me last minute? Why is he giving me that? And then I understood the reason why he's giving me all this, because above him are also people, okay? The board is putting pressure on him for information.
Right.
Then the board did not have the information immediately for them to make decision. The problem is these information are already available.
Right.
It is not in a readable format. In other words, easy to retrieve and give an answer. When you give a press conference, you need the data. on the spot. Do that. If you don't have it, you look around. Hey, give me that tomorrow morning. So what I did was to organize the entire data in terms of what information the public needs, what information was given immediately, because we were in the medical field. It's very important. So organize the information so much so that anyone in the company that has the accessibility to this can retrieve the information quickly. And that's what I did for. So we set up some kind of a reference thing and all that. In those days, you must remember, we don't have computers yet.
Okay. You had to physically go through papers, go through journals, and get information.
Index them. So index
when I started at radio, it was like that too. We used to bring newspaper cuttings in. Today, we just voila, type it into a computer.
So my point is this, okay? People are sensible. If I approach someone and say, listen, we have a problem, we have to find a solution. Is it right? What is the problem? Then we have a solution. If you don't have a problem, you'll never find a solution. So when you're dealing with bosses, you need to talk to the boss, talk to him. I don't think anyone can tell me that there are people who refuse to listen to you. There's no such thing. What happens is you're caught in the wrong time. And therefore, no, do it my way. But you must find the right time and the right place, and then to bring it out. Again, Lana, Gerard, it is like this, Lana. If you ridicule me in front of somebody else, of course I feel threatened, Lana. So when you want to say something to me, talk to me one-to-one, Lana. I will listen to you, Lana. When you talk to 2-3 people and make a remark, then I think you're belittling me, Lana. That is very bad. To me, I think people must learn human behavior a little bit, Lana. Psychology of human being,
I mean, from top down in this country, that's something that's lacking. I just heard someone talk on another radio station about how we tend to give in. As Malaysians, we tend to give in. We are not direct with people. We are always very indirect because that's the way we were brought up. We were brought up that way. And we always knew that there's a hierarchy. Where there's a minister and where there's you down on the ground, there's a hierarchy, and you need to go through that.
It won't work that way for a long. It won't. See, Gerard, the problem is like that. Okay. Yes. We all came from a background in which we were more or less told, be seen and not heard. We come for that kind of thing. See, what we also must learn, we were told not to talk. But if we grew up and we meet society, we've been around the world, we see society behave in a different way. Why not take some of the good things and express the view? But when you express your view, you must not be emotionally charged with that view. Speak about it factually. You see, that's collect data, make it factual and present it. Anyone who does not want to see those factual things is either a fool or is not worth even changing. So that's the way. That's where the problem is. The problem is, yes, in general. But having said that, Lana, in the last 2 to 3, 4 years now, Asians are showing. Around the world, it's happening. People are really coming out.
And we'd like to say thank you at this juncture to the internet. The equalizer.
Exactly. I like the word equalizer. Very good. See, the problem is we, as a person, we are developing. We have different views. I have a view. You have a view. But within these two views, there must be something that is common. First, get that right. I have a view. You have a view. Is your view wrong? No. Is my view right? Wrong. It's not like that. It's not right and wrong. Shades of grey,
Shades of grey.
Millions of grey areas. I learned a long time ago. The more you know of something, the less you know of it, Lana. There's so much more you don't know, Lana.
That's absolutely true. Well, from the office, let's now take it a notch backwards and go back to the family, putting the blame on people at home. And that's detrimental, if you ask me. If you can't identify the problem in the office, you can cover it up for a few years, but somehow, you'll come full circle. But at home, when you come full circle, it's going to kill you and the people around you.
Gerard, statistics shows around the world, the separation of marriage is about more than 40%. Even Malaysia, for that matter. 40% of marriages break up. The question is why? And then you will come one common word. I can't talk to my husband. I can't talk to my wife. Communication is bad. So it's better we...
all that's okay with me. What I can't wrap my head around is, we've grown out of each other. I don't understand what that means. Seriously.
Exactly. The reason is, see, I take it this way, no? Let me go back. There's self-esteem. There is communication. People's self-esteem, grows. It grows as you grow. Some people, at the time of meeting one another, the self-esteem is in the same level. Then, after the marriage, one or the other party's self-esteem becomes higher, better, and wants different thing, Whereas the other person, the other party, is where he or she was. And the gap between the self-esteem, my self-esteem, your self-esteem, is growing bigger and bigger. And that's why, we can't talk to one another. We have a different perspective of things and all that. That's what it is. Give you some example, okay? Example in a marriage, okay? Say I like to visit my mother every Sunday. Every Sunday I must go home and see my mother. As a young man. Then I get married. And then I like golf and you like golf. I like reading and you like reading. You like this and I like that. And we good. We have stayed together. Fine, let's get married. We have married on one thing. And that is my interests and your interests are the same. The moment we get married, I say, hey, let's go to my mother's house on Sunday. You say, huh? No. I want to be alone. See, value difference. See, that value is not the same. We have married on the interest basis, not on the value. If the value is not the same, then this kind of problem will happen. Misunderstanding happens because of this also. Then we start to blame one another. Everything that you do, the moment I have a problem with you in self-esteem and value change, I will look upon all the small things. I don't like red, and we start to blame
the nitty-gritty things. You start picking on it. But it also goes a little further. Like at times, if there's infidelity within the marriage, and someone look, you're going out with someone else. Yeah, because I'm not getting what I need to be getting from you, and I think that really can crush a person.
It can. It can. But again. It also depends. If two people sit down and are able to have a decent conversation, nothing will go wrong. The problem is we don't have conversation. We throw words at one another, and when you start throwing words,
hurl abuses.
Okay. I buy that. We abuse one another to some extent. There is no point talking anymore. That's what happens. Okay, we don't have the trouble to even understand the difficulty in communication. Communication is not a given gift, It's a developed gift. A gift that you have to develop from time to time, depending on the age of the person, the maturity of the person, the interest of the person, the value of and so on and so forth, so much more. So because we don't compare that and suddenly, I am who I am and you are who you are, and we can't get along. We just don't match. We're out of this two different world altogether, and that's because lack of understanding.
So when I'm putting the blame on someone, especially when I've taken, I want to walk down that straight and narrow of matrimony, and being apparently what do you call it? There's infidelity and fidelity, taking the part of fidelity. So when I've ascertained that, look, I'm putting the blame on others, how do I
get around it?
Get around it within family. How do I work around it?
See, simple,
Do I break down and cry?
No. What you should do is to sit down and say, okay, these are the faults as I see myself, in which I need to improve. Okay, can we start from there?
Okay.
I have talked to people who had problems in marriages. I always tell them, can you sit down quietly in two different places, sit down, and write down all the problems you have one another. Okay, when they have written out completely, say, have you done with the list? Say, yes. Say, would you go through the list again? And they go through it. I say, now you take back the list. Don't talk to one another. See me in 1 week. Come and talk to me again. The list is shortened down already. Because when you try to see again, we react in that emotional way. But when you sit down to look at it, it's not because of that. First of all, I must admit I have a fault. Okay, but all this, all this takes time. You need to spend that little time for yourself to discover, hey, what is it and where can I improve? If you don't do that, we'll continue like that road, and eventually come a break up again. No matter what you do, it's like saying like this, I can see the wool in your eyes 10 meters away.
Right.
Yet I cannot see this big block of brick in front of me. So what are we saying?
Right.
We can see other people's fault. We can never see our own fault.
And most married guys that I've spoken to always say, they talk about this power called women's intuition. As soon as they're doing something wrong, the person that they're married to, their spouse, their wives, their partners, can feel it. And do you think that that there's some truth to that, women's intuition?
Well, Gerald, let me say like that, Lana. We all, human being, you, me, woman, men, are gifted with this thing called the brain.
Right.
And inside the brain, there is the logical brain, there is the intuitive brain.
Right.
What we have done is we have made this logical brain, like we are the servant to this logical brain.
Right.
But we have forgotten this intuitive brain that we all have. You have, I have, everybody have.
Right. I have for sure. It's always the logical brain that takes over.
So what, we become servants of the logical brain. Yeah, sure, you need the logical brain. But the intuitive brain is the one that makes you grow and develop.
Right.
What does your intuition say? Your intuition brain is that sum total of all your data that you collected from the time you were born until now. You have this inside you, okay? And this intuitive brain tells you what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what's not. But what happens is your logical brain overrides it, or they say consciously override it,
Right.
And that's the problem. The problem is we don't listen to our intuition, and intuition are not more for women or less for men.
Right.
It's equal.
It's equal.
The fact is, the women use their intuitive brain better and polish it and getting better and better and better.
And why is that?
Why? Because it's their nature. Because as a woman, as a girl, when you're growing up, you are put in one corner.
Right.
We always, a male species have always looked down on the female species.
Condescended upon the female
Yeah,
species,
exactly.
as we do in this country.
Exactly. So what they are told, don't talk, stay there.
Right.
See, watch. So they watch and they watch and they watch. From the age of 1 to the age of 25, they watch. Or maybe up to 17, 18, they watch and they learn. And that's why they become better, because they are always processing them. Why like that? Why is he saying like that? Why is he behaving like that? They begin to have that. So in a way, they develop their intuitive brain.
Right.
Men, on the other hand, it's a gun. It's an animal.
Right.
Fight. Kill or be killed,
Right.
And that's the reason why we don't develop our intuitive brain.
Right.
You cannot tell me that Albert Einstein did not have an intuitive brain. He has a lot of that.
Right.
And
it was
he's
a lot of intuition
Yeah.
that made him come to where he went, the
Exactly.
places
Yes.
we never went. Right. But having said that, you're talking about intuition now, and I know I like to take a conversation all the way and come around. Intuition and blaming each other, is there a connection?
Yes.
Or blaming other people?
Yes.
How do you make that connection?
When your intuition is telling you that what the person, whatever that, let's say your wife is telling you, and your intuition tells you what she's saying is right, no? You override it.
Right.
You challenge that intuition. Instead of saying, well, she's right. And logically she's right. I'm sorry. How can we go forward?
Right.
Simple as that. See, problem is when we try to override and try to convince ourselves what we are doing is right, and what you're saying is wrong, that's when problem starts. Okay. But if just by reversing it, take your intuition, yeah, you are wrong, your intuition tells you you're wrong.
Okay, so your intuition is your guide to life.
Yes.
That's what you say.
Yes.
Okay, now we take this context out of the house and come back to the office. So if one tells you that, look, in the office you're always blaming others for your shortcomings, but your intuition says, look, it's not you. You know what you're doing. So how do you handle that then?
Okay, first of all, whatever you're doing must be seen by the other person,
Right.
as also something that is
This goes back to collecting of data.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You see, you tell me things, I don't believe you because there's nothing to support what you say, and therefore I don't believe you.
Right.
But if you support what you say, even the little data that you have gives you an idea. Well, this is right. Okay, this happened. It's factual. Let's deal with it, and then go forward. Is when people talk in conceptually they talk about it. That's where the problem is. I think that's how we must get out of it. Don't always talk in concept. Also try to show reality.
Right.
What is it? How can we go forward by what we have done? And that way, we can have a better life.
Right.
And manage your life a little better.
When you're talking about the office or the context of the office, doesn't productivity tell for itself or show as data?
Well, yes. Productivity can only be measured if it's collected.
Right.
In 1 hour, I did this paper.
Right.
Can I do the same paper on the same subject, on the same thing, in 45 minutes?
Right.
I have improved productivity. But if you say I'm working very hard, I have a lot, I did a lot. You see this pile of document, what is that pile of document? Don't know what it is. So productivity is unmeasurable.
Right.
It becomes, I work hard. But here I have a document that says, hey, this one I did last time 60 minutes, now I did 40 minutes. That's how you improve your productivity. By yourself. Meaning, within the given time, you can do the same thing in lesser time. That means you increase what you have done. See, because year on year, you have to have at least a minimum inflationary increment.
Right.
Where is that coming from? It can't come from increasing a product price.
Right.
That's one of the problems in Asia, okay? We keep increasing prices, inflation goes up.
Right.
We never look and say, hey, can this product be produced at a lower cost?
Right.
Not by lowering its quality, but in terms of people.
Right.
Okay, I know, I work with companies, okay? When I first went to the company, the number of people they had and what they produce. And 10 years later, the company has doubled itself and the number of employees has remained the same.
Right.
Has that improved productivity? Of course it has. Because you have doubled your turnover with the same number of people. Are they working more? No. They start at 9. In fact, in this company, they start at 8:30 and 5:30 they're over, 5 days a week. So it's like that, you know. Productivity is measurable, provided you take trouble to measure it.
Right.
Don't expect out of the whim, you know, everybody knows that you're working very hard. And that's a problem. Most people think they're working very hard. But are they productive? I don't know.
That's another problem. Another can of worms for us to open on some other day. Well, you know, before we close this evening's segment on time management, of course, today we're taking a look at blaming others. Do you blame others, or are you the kind of person who would blame others for your shortcomings? Well, I'm sure there's a checklist of what we should go through when we do this, so maybe we can run down that checklist once again, just so all of us are clear as to whether we're blaming someone or not.
First, my first checklist to you would be like this, okay? Always ask yourself, are you to be blamed?
Right.
Are you part of the problem? Are you the person that caused this problem?
Right.
Or last thing is, hey, am I understanding the perception of that person? If I change that perception,
Right.
or am I using an old data to understand the person the same way? What was he 1 week ago and now different? There are a few things, Lana.
Right.
First of all, it starts with you. You are the one that need to make that first start.
Right.
I am the one to be blamed. I am the one who made a mistake.
Right.
I am the one. How can we go forward? Simple thing.
Right. Identify it and think how to go forward but not regress from that point.
Don't go back to the same old record again. It's like playing a gramophone record, the same needle on the same groove, you know.
Right.
Eventually you have more problem.
Right. You know, when you went through all these kind of problems, have you ever encountered these kind of problems? Because for us, you know, for someone who does time management, you know, always on the ball, finger on the pulse, you know, you're always doing the right things, making the right moves all the time. Have you ever digressed, and have these things ever happened to you?
Of course.
Right.
You see, it's good to read about other people and what other people say, but only when you experience it yourself will you be able to understand what that exactly means. No? I have been through life, and all my life I've seen that I am the problem. I am the one that need to find a solution to this.
Right.
I am the one who have to seek for it. And it has happened to me. I have behaved as if I know everything. And I said to you just now, the more you know, the less you know.
Right.
It's a fact.
That sounds very much like Aikido. The more you know, the less you know it.
Yeah. It's true. The more you know,
the
you
law
less
of harmony, so to speak.
Because, you know, human beings are progressively developing and becoming different, better at it. I must recognize, I have been through that. I've seen my children, my family, everybody, you know. But what is the problem? The problem is me. I recognize that I have to change the way I think, the way I do. And I am the one who should take the step
Right.
The rest will come by itself.
And here's the million-dollar question for today. We've talked about how to identify if you are putting the blame on others. But the million-dollar question is, how does this all tie in with time management before we end?
Because everything that we have talked about in the last half an hour, it's to do with
40
you.
minutes to be exact.
Okay. It has to do with time. Because you need to allocate time to examine what you have done.
Right.
I have what I call a review checklist. I sit down every day and every time sit down and then go through what I talked about, what I did, was I happy with it, what can be better. I review myself. When I talk to someone, even my wife, my children, I review myself, say, how can I do this better? How can I improve?
Right.
How can I make them understand? What is it that I'm not understanding about them? Lots of questions I ask myself. And that I do on a regular basis throughout my life.
Well, if you were Catholic, you'd be a saint.
No, I'd rather die a human.
Well, with that, thank you so much, Dr. Venga. It was a pleasure having a chat with you on a Sunday evening. Of course, I'm sure you're going to enjoy the rest of your evening. With that, don't forget to tune in to us every Sunday with Dr. Venga, and we will run the show once again every Monday at 9:15 on the lounge, just so you get to recap what was said on Sunday by listening back once again. Always listening to things twice apparently helps. So you can do that on Monday right here on 812 Live, Padama Radio 24. Doctor, once again, have a great week ahead. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Stay with us. Coming up shortly is News 24 right here on 812 Live, Padama Radio 24.